The second wave of the coronavirus being imported by them overseas.
This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I imagine probably it is the act of some deluxe provincial administrators, the same type of guys who covered up the Wuhan epidemic at the start. I mean, I cannot believe the central government would have authorized that, but the central government needs now to scramble and act quickly because that is bad. We have millions of Chinese living in Africa. Nobody harms them. When we all know that it started in China. Now, blaming Africans now, running after that, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, in all fairness, Mr. Ibrahim, I mean, some Chinese nationals have been harassed on the African continent as well. But do you think that this is a situation that could affect the relationship between China and African countries?
I don't think so. It is an incident which wise people will cross that. When some Chinese people were harassed in Kenya, we all spoke out and people stand on that very quickly. In the rest of countries, 54 countries, I mean, nobody harassed the Chinese. And if anyone harassed the Chinese, we'll stand up and talk about it and not to ask the Chinese central government, also Chinese people, to stand up and say, sorry, that's not our voice, that's not who we are, because we need to go get across that. We're facing serious.
Okay.
And,
Okay, Mo Ibrahim, always good to have you here on Focus on Africa. Thank you very much for your time. Well, let's get more on that story about Africans living in the Chinese city of Ghanzhou who say they are being evicted from their apartments and forcefully held under quarantine. The BBC's Danny Vincent reports from neighboring Hong Kong.
Today is the second day I have been locked in this room in the name of quarantine.
For 2 days, Simon, a Nigerian national, has been locked in his hospital room against his will. To protect his identity, he asked for his name to be changed. He was evicted from his apartment, forced into quarantine over fears that the African community in Ghanzhou was spreading the coronavirus.
There are some Europeans that are here, there's Americans that are here, but they are not forcefully for a time.
He says he's lived in Ghanzhou for 3 years, has no recent travel history, and has not come into contact with anyone with COVID-19. He says he's tested negative for the virus, yet he remains in quarantine.
Yes, so some Nigerians and other Africans, as long as you are black, you are being forced to quarantine. So I still ask our government to help us, if possible, to send the plane to take us home.
The BBC has spoken to dozens who say they were forced into quarantine regardless of whether they tested negative for the virus.
Look at the door, they lock it from outside, I cannot go out. Understand, I cannot go out. They lock it from outside right now, I'm shaking the door.
Thousands of Africans live in Ghanzhou. It has been a hub for traders from across the continent for well over a decade. China now fears imported cases of COVID-19 could lead to a second outbreak. The Ghanzhou government says it's tested every African in the city. Community leaders say Africans have been evicted from their homes and forced into hotels. Those without funds have been sleeping on the streets. McDonald's apologised over this notice handed out to customers in one of its local branches. The note reads that black people are refused to be served. The United States consulate warned African Americans to avoid the city. The Chinese government maintains that China has zero tolerance of racism.
China's friendly policy towards Africa has not changed, and African countries and people's friendly feeling towards China will not be shaken. We will not discriminate against African brothers. In fact, during the early days of the outbreak of the epidemic in China, more than 3,000 African students in Hubei and Wuhan were safe, except one person who was infected and quickly cured.
As much of China begins to return to normality after months of social isolation, one community in Ghanzhou remains under lockdown. Danny Vincent, BBC News, Hong Kong.